All right. Okay. All right, here we go.
Ready to go? Live in 9 minutes. Why is that?
All right, everybody, here we are. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the Think Different podcast live here on YouTube. And we are happy to be here, guys, for another great episode of the Think Different podcast. If you have never joined us for this before, we are former Apple employees, and we now are no longer employed by Apple. That's right. We are not there because we decided to either retire or find new jobs. So we're now just here as fans of Apple. And we are here to talk about what happened today here at WWDC. Because that's what
right.
we do.
One of the best days of the year.
One of the best days of the year. That's right. It is like, for Apple people, this is like our Christmas. And I'm so happy that we're here live on our YouTube. But normally, we are a podcast platform. And that's where we normally are hanging out on. But we have been publishing our YouTube videos every week. But make sure you, if you want to hear the audio version of our podcast, you can join us every Friday morning because we put an audio condensed version up all the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, first off, I need to introduce to myself. I am Will, the TLD. That's right, I am Will, the TLD. And, of course, my co-host right below me, this man right down here, he is Mr. Frank this Funk.
Hey, what's going on, Will?
I have no idea.
Today, huh?
Nothing happened. Nothing happened at all.
A lot of things happened today, man.
I gotta tell you, Frank, how was your week, sir?
My week was good. Good. Lost another 2 pounds.
Hey, that's
good.
By the way, I saved this man's life because I made him into the keto lifestyle. So I'm so proud of myself for saving his life.
Yep. So we're doing pretty well on it. So things are going good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm happy that you are happy and alive and kicking.
Yep.
You know, all those good things.
My golf game sucks, but other than that.
Well, I mean, you were never a golfer to begin with there, Frankie. I mean, I've seen you play at the miniature golf. I know you are not ready for that putt-putt clown. I can tell you right now, you're having a hard time with that clown mouth every single time that you just annoys the hell out of you.
Yeah, the windmill gets me too.
Ah, you poor dude.
Yeah, I'm just a sad old man.
Well, you might be an old man, but I don't know about sad. So, all right, everybody, let's get to the WWDC results. So, overall, Frank, we had this unique style. Remember, if you're listening to us 27 years later, well, this was during the coronavirus time. So, we had a humongous problem going on in this world, but now we are out of that world of coronavirus problems, and we are now here. And I have to ask you, Frank, your thoughts on how this podcast went. I'm sorry, it's a keynote event. Wow, I'm so into our podcast, yeah. I got it completely wrong.
Yeah, the keynote. Well, as always, I thought, well, it was different this time, but I thought it was very exciting. We got to see a little bit of the campus, not as much of Tim Cook as we had seen in the past. A lot of other individuals talked about a lot of different things, iOS 14, Mac OS, iPad OS, and different individuals. And of course, don't forget one of the most important features, the new silicon chips that Apple is making.
That's right. Apple silicone. Silicone. What is it called?
Silicone.
All right.
Whatever suits your fancy.
All
They
right.
said silicon.
Silicon. Okay. Well, that definitely did happen. We're gonna go in order of everything that happened this week. I gotta tell you, right away you could tell the production of it was just, one of the things I told you right before we went on the air, just a lot of green screen. It felt like it didn't feel like they were in the real Apple camp. It felt like they filmed all the Apple stuff and then they threw them in there. It just didn't look as good. I thought the production of transitioning from each spot was cool. That I will like, but I really wish that they were. It definitely didn't look like they were in the spots they were in.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting how they opened with Tim Cook, his back to where the audience would be, so you could see all the empty seats.
Right.
I thought that was interesting.
Frank, you are coming out of frame, sir. I cannot see you. Jesus, man. Look at this man getting lazy ever since he lost his weight. So, continue what you were saying, Frank, but say it in the frame so people actually could see you on camera.
All right. When Tim Cook started his presentation, he was facing the camera, and the camera was really kind of at the back of the stage, so you could see an empty stadium or the theater there. I thought that was a little interesting.
Yeah, and then, of course, they started off with everything with the Black Lives Matter and all the, the coronavirus going on, two things going on at the exact same time that affected this entire world. Apple pledging they pledge $100 million to a movement that they have a special program for Black and African Americans. So Tim Cook talked about that. And yeah, this is the one problem I have when it comes to Tim is again, you're right. He's not on stage enough, and I wish he was. And that's where things get a little annoying. But he's also not the technical guy in the background of everything too. So I can also understand that as well. So let's talk about it, Frank. So let's go down in order of what happened. Of course, they started off with iOS, almost like what they do every single time. And let's talk about some of the new features that they came out with, and some of the more exciting features. So they introduced the app library. We have the new widgets feature on the home screen. Picture-in-picture, which I can't wait till we talk about.
Yeah.
Siri no longer being a full screen application, which was awesome to hear. Messages now that we have that new @ style where you could tag someone in a group. Maps are expanding their countries. They are allowing cycling now built into it, which is great for people in major cities. CarPlay is getting a humongous upgrade with the digital car key. They're opening the NFC chip.
You also forgot in the maps they have, if you have an electric vehicle.
Yes, electric vehicle.
They'll map it out so you can go to the charging stations along your trip. And as I understand it, you'll put in the type of vehicle you have, so they'll give you the charging stations for that particular manufacturer.
Correct. And then they also talked about the App Store and how they're going to talk and how they are launching something brand new with the sign with Apple and Apple Pay, and basically a QR code or a location tag can now allow an app to pop up even if you don't have it installed. So let's talk about a couple of the big things that I wanted to kind of give you an overview. We're going to start talking about Mac OS, iPad OS, privacy, home, Mac OS, and then of course Apple Silicon, but also what they didn't talk about, which came out afterwards, and we're going to talk about that at the end so everyone knows what is missing in the keynote that they kind of like put on the back burner. They don't want everyone to know about. Yeah. So let's talk about, Frank. First off, new iOS 14.
Yep, the auto organizer for your apps.
So app library, which is that's called.
Yeah, right now you can have multiple pages on your phone. You would swipe through them, and you could create folders. But still, if you collect a lot of apps, you're still going to have a lot of screens. Now what happens is you can hide screens, so you don't have to go through as many. And then at the last screen, as I understand it, the last screen as you swipe to the left is going to be your app library, and it will automatically organize your apps. I would think by genre.
Yeah,
so that you will have like apps grouped together.
right, and they talked about what group subs are doing, including recently added ones that they believe you're going to actually,
Yeah,
use the most, which is what they were going.
used, recently added.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. One of the things I liked about it was the way that the widgets could be on the main screen. Like every day, I always check the weather, and usually I slide to the widgets area to do it. Now it could be right on my screen, which is awesome, and I'm really happy they're doing that. I think that's important. I think Siri no longer being a full screen app is a big thing, and not only that, but the phone calls as well, which is a humongous feature that I told my wife about that, and she was like, "Oh, thank God for that."
Going back to your earlier point about the widgets, they also mentioned that you could set it up that, like you mentioned, you look at the news in the morning. Well, you could have that widget change with
throughout the day,
time of the day.
Yep.
So the news doesn't always have to be in that widget. It could be news in the morning, weather at noon, or whatever you wanted. So there's a lot of customization that can go on there. That's pretty exciting.
That's almost like the Siri watch, where the Siri kind of predicts what you might want to have on your screen. I remember that was a watch face that they have. So I thought that was kind of similar to that, which I like. But the fact that the phone calls won't come interrupting you anymore. Now, they introduced that in the iPad OS, which I thought was interesting. I brought it up here now because it affects all of our OSs, so I don't know why they just didn't talk about that. I think they just wanted to add more things for iPad OS, which, in reality, especially on the iPad, if you're getting a call and it blocks everything you're doing, that's super annoying, and everyone hated that. And now Apple finally has decided to change that setting around, which I think is awesome. Messages, not really anything too crazy. I thought the idea of the groups having their own pictures is great. I think the mentions is great. I'm glad they didn't spend 40 minutes on that, because they did that with Memoji. They went crazy with for Memoji.
Yeah.
And they spent too long on that.
You can single out a particular message and reply to the person that sent that. You don't have to reply to the entire group, which is also pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I like that a lot.
Agree. CarPlay, now, we don't have any of this technology in our cars. At least, do you have CarPlay in your car?
I do not.
Yeah, so we don't care about that because we don't have cars like that.
Oh, that's not true. That's not
true. No, I don't have a car.
It would be an incentive for me to go buy a new...
I'm not going to buy a car for CarPlay. I'm sorry. I'll buy a car to get my ass from one spot to another. All right, now, I know you don't move a lot anymore, Frank. I know we're improving that by me putting you on the keto diet, but damn, man, like, I'm not going to buy a BMW to get my CarPlay and amazing car features. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not. And
oddly enough, Will, I was looking at a BMW 5. So
oh
now
my
I may
God!
just
Now you're just throwing your goddamn money around. You retired, old scholastic asshole. All right,
so Apple stock's going up.
That's true. Went up at least 2% today. That was good, man. Made over $1,000 today. I'm happy.
There you go.
And then
at home.
Mm-hmm. And then the universal search I thought was very interesting as well. Now this has to tie into the iPad OS. One thing I loved about iPad OS, the sidebar is coming on most of the apps. Thank God, because I love the sidebar. Sidebar is one of the best features that are so small that imagine you didn't have that ever. Well, you haven't had it on the iPad, but now you're getting it. So just like the news app has it and other apps have it, now we're getting it. And thank God for that.
Yeah. And it's funny because they used to have it on certain apps and then they took it away.
Right.
Well, they didn't take it away. They just didn't show it all the time.
Like iPhoto is a perfect example. iPhoto had that. Photos kind of try to get away from it, but people like having a list. Like they do. Yep. And speaking of that, they're improving that with Files too, because now Files has a sort change now. Again, you're going to have the side list wide open, ready to go, and organized. It's a beautiful thing for iPad OS to have that. And then even for the music, that's probably the biggest one. I like having that list on there.
And, what I think it really brings to the forefront, Will, is the fact that you're going to have the sidebar in pretty much every Apple app. so that no matter what app, you will be familiar with the format across the board.
Right. And that's an Apple thing to
And
do.
and I think that's a very very big plus in my opinion. The menu bars across the top, all of those icons will be uniform, so you're never really lost from application to application. To me, that's an important feature.
Yeah, and the universal search is great because one thing I hate is when I'm search. So I'll give you a perfect example. I was trying to look up a movie, so I went up and I did like the search bar without having to look up. But when I look up movies, it's not taking me to like the TV. It's not taking me to the TV app,
Right,
which I
right.
thought was weird. So like right now, if I search The Dark Knight, it's not. I don't have an option in there. It tells me Siri knowledge, suggested websites, news, podcasts. Why is it not taking me to the TV app where I could buy it? That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. Like,
Yep.
people, look, Dark Knight, and it doesn't even show me anything but TV in it. Like, what's up with that? Like, how is that not one of the options that should be up there? Doesn't make any sense to me. You know, and now hopefully this universal search is going to look inside of the apps what I'm looking for and figure that out because I get annoyed by stupid things like that. But I got to tell you, Frank, do you have an iPad, right?
Yes, sir. Several.
Do you have the Apple Pencil?
I do.
Tell me how you feel about that because I don't have an Apple Pencil. But the scribble feature.
Believe it or not, I have the older Apple Pencil. I don't
all
have
right.
it because
Don't
I
worry about
bought the iPad before I retired. But the scribble feature, I actually use that a lot on my watch with my finger, and I think it's going to be a huge plus on my iPad where you can take notes in script and then it will turn it into text. And I'm sure there's going to be a learning curve to recognize your handwriting, but I think that's going to be a big, big feature because, you know, if I'm taking notes in a class and I want to give those notes to a fellow student, they're not going to understand my chicken scratch. But if I convert it to text, you can easily send that off to them. It's going to be a big help. And you can also, it's going to be a lot easier to highlight a word or a group of words, a paragraph in your script, and then cut and paste it, convert it to text, all in one step. I think that's going to be huge. Very big.
I like the idea of shapes that can be changed now. I think how you can select handwriting, put like a different color over it, and
Yes.
so that stands out a little more. And even when you highlight the handwriting text, you can copy and paste it to another app, and then it pastes it as text, which I thought was amazing. I think it's a great. I think this is a very, very good app. It's a great added bonus to the Apple Pencil, and it doesn't matter which one you have. So it doesn't matter which Apple Pencil you're using. There's no exclusive feature other than the hold of it. That's really it.
Right.
So
Well, I think the intelligence that they're building into this,
Right.
both the Surrey intelligence and the pencil intelligence, is really jumping a big step in this iteration.
And another great feature that would be so useful. Now, this is great for all of our former Apple peeps, the Translate app that's going to be working offline. Now, and that's key. They said it was offline, so you do not need to be connected to a service in order for Translate to work. They're going to have, I think, like 7 different languages, the most
11.
common ones.
11 different
11,
languages,
thank you.
which I was a little disappointed in because I thought, there would be more because the app that I use, Say Hi, there's, I never really counted them, but there's a whole laundry list. But I imagine that over the course of time, they'll add more. But 11 of the languages is a good start.
11's fine for me. I think that's enough to start with. One thing I would also like to mention with iOS 14, picture in picture. Oh, I'm so happy. Now, I hope YouTube adapts that. Because the biggest thing with picture in picture, any screen, you could swipe the video away and just hear the audio. Because maybe I don't want to see something on my YouTube or on our TV app. Maybe I want to be able to kind of just lower it a little bit. Now, you could do that in iPad with some apps now, like Plex and other ones, but you can't do it on the iPhone. They're bringing it to the iPhone as well. translate. How the heck am I supposed to speak Greek when I want to go to Greece? That wasn't one of the options. Damn it!
You should already know Greek. You are Greek.
I'm 50% Greek. Okay, that means I only know 50% of the language.
Yeah. The other thing with the Translate app that they're creating, if you turn your phone in landscape mode,
Yep.
it will automatically set the microphone for whatever side is going to be talking next. So I thought that was a pretty interesting.
That's a
feature.
small thing. Yeah. You wouldn't know that's a big thing until you actually have it.
Yeah.
You got 3 microphones in your phone, and I think it's important that it knows like which microphone to use as well. Now, to add another bonus, now they kind of went off a little bit and talked about AirPods, which I was like, oh, really? What are they bringing up AirPods for? Well, so AirPods does have the ability right now, if you have a pair, which you can get a free pair if you're an educator right now, as we talked about in our last episode. Please check that out, not only on our YouTube, but also check out the podcast and download that episode. The AirPods are able to, you can go to the Bluetooth icon and click on it, and it does switch. But you have to do something. Now, it's going to automatically know what you're doing for that to work.
And what device you're using.
That's scary.
Connect.
That's scary to know. Like right now, if I'm on, let's say my AirPods were on this Mac right now, all of a sudden I pick up my phone and I start talking into it. Now, I could see that somewhat not working, because what if you're watching something on here, but then you go to your iPhone? I know you're not playing music or anything, but if you get a phone call, it'll automatically switch over, which I think that's great for that. But I don't know if it's going to work all the time. We'll find out. Yep. But the spatial audio and how they had to talk about
surround sound,
and it works for Dolby Atmos, which I think is going to make a lot of people happy. And the fact that they had to figure out that if we turned our head or turned our phone or a bus moves in a direction, that it's still able to keep that same spatial audio using a gyroscope. Amazing, way how all these different technologies are talking together to make sure it doesn't mess up the audio. Because normally you're in your home, your audio doesn't move, but if you went to the left of your room, you're going to hear more the left side than you are the right.
Yes.
Well, with AirPods when we're going to bring up Apple TV, now you're able to kind of walk wherever you are, and it's able to keep the same audio. That's pretty amazing.
Hey, one of the biggest things that I can't wait for is the Apple TV will support 2 sets of AirPods simultaneously.
Yes.
That is absolutely amazing.
Yes. I'm not going to lie. I never used one pair of headphones as it was. But the idea of putting your headphones on and being able to watch something, I don't know. I don't think I'd ever do that. But you actually do that though?
Well, there are certain cases.
I'm trying to figure out a scenario where I'm going to like that.
Well, my wife has a habit. If I'm watching TV, she has a habit of playing her games, or she'll be watching something on YouTube, and she just plays the sound through her phone. And from time to time, it's annoying. And I'll do the same thing, but not intentionally. So having the AirPods connected, and you're tuned into your show or the movie, whatever you're watching, and other people can do other things, and it's not going to bother you. So I think that's going to be big.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that's going to work out. Try it one day. Watch it, but now let's pick it up to the WatchOS 7 that is coming.
Let me finish with
this. Okay.
One more thing.
No, Bull, we didn't get that. Don't tease the audience.
If you have an elderly person you're taking care of, and you go over to their house, and they have the TV up to 90, all you have to do is get them a set of AirPods with an Apple TV, and they have their own set of headphones. You don't have to have the TV up to 80 or 90 volume level.
Okay, I'm sorry to my wife for this, but your mother needs that immediately, because she's watching her Fox News 20 hours a day, and I don't want to hear it. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you, Frank. You have now given me a scenario,
There you go.
For that reason. So obviously, if Frank comes over, we would do the same thing, because he's probably watching.
Right. Yep.
He's probably watching drum videos all day.
That's right. So. You got it.
We should one day take a tour of your drum sets.
Sure.
WatchOS 7 came out as well. Is announced. I wouldn't say it came out. But now they're going to be able to do multiple complications in one face, which I love that. So having two different complications, but they up the ante. You can actually download a watch face from an app that could contain multiple apps in one watch face, which I think that's really cool. And not only that, they added you could share that in messages or social media, so other people can come out with a watch face. You could download that to your device and have that set up as a watch face. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, I am. I saw that and I went, oh, I would really like that. There are several times I have a watch face, and my wife goes, "How did you do that?" And I would go through the whole thing, setting up her watch face similar to mine, when all I would have had to do was to share that watch face, and she would have it.
Right.
It's going to be a big
That's great.
step.
And I love how it could be a social media share, which I think is great. Cycling directions, of course, we kind of talked about that. They now have dance workouts that are now going to be tracked.
That's interesting. I like that.
Wow, you dance all the time, Mr. Salsa Man?
All right. My wife and I are thinking, we got the keto thing going. We're losing weight. Now we're going to start doing some dancing, shed a few more pounds,
Oh my God, I want to learn. Frank is going to do not only a live drum performance, but a live salsa performance and a keto cooking show, all here on the Think Different podcast. Subscribe now. And then they changed the activity app. They now call it Fitness, and they are having a new summary tab, which I thought looked good.
Yes.
And including in that is sleep tracking.
Yeah.
Now,
that for me is a question mark.
Let me see if you picked it up, what they said to do. Do you remember what they said to do when it comes to fitness tracking, like when you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, it tells you the type of sleep you've had and so on and so forth. But then later on in the day, you have to charge your watch.
No, so that's what I wanted to see if you picked up. So how they picked up that when you wake up in the morning, they tell you the battery life, and she slightly just said it under her breath that, that way the battery life, so that way when you get up in the morning, you could charge it. So what they're training you to do is to get up in the morning and put it on the charger before you start your day.
Yeah.
That is how they're training you using the Apple Watch. So
I work the opposite.
But that's the way it should be, honestly. If you really think about it, you're wearing the watch the entire day. When the morning, what are you doing? You're making your breakfast. You're getting your coffee ready. You're gonna hopefully you're taking a shower once a week, and you are able to just put your watch on the face just for a little bit, and do that.
You have to count your steps.
Oh, come on. Give me a break. What are you doing? Now, unless you work out in the morning, that kind of hurts you.
I do.
Okay.
Well,
Okay, so you work out in the morning, but then you take it off. You're going to shower. You don't need the watch on when you shower. I'm sorry, you don't.
That's true.
And you put it away, and that is what they're telling us or trying to train you, I would say, to do it. I wouldn't be surprised when they come out with the full version of it, which, by the way, WatchOS is going to come out as a beta on there for the first time. They have not released WatchOS as a beta, so they are doing it this time. And that's how you're going to have to do it, because definitely they're not denying your battery's going to last. They're not.
Yeah, no. Well, my routine is when I
What's Frank's routine?
Go to bed at night, I take my watch and I put it on a charger, so when I get up in the morning, it's charged and ready to go. So I'll have to see if I want to try that sleep thing.
Yeah, I'm going to try it for a week. I am going to try it. I'm curious. I want to know what it's like. I want to know how it works, if it's going to affect it. Now, the good thing is we're all staying home now, and I'll be honest, I don't wear a watch as often because I'm staying home. I'm always in front of a computer, or I just, for whatever reason, my body has now been trained not to wear my watch because of the way I'm working now.
Well, I have to make a confession. Prior to me buying an Apple Watch, I collected wristwatches.
Okay.
I had...
That's your confession?
I still do. I have about 12 wristwatches, 2 Citizens, and the rest all chased hour. And they're not as expensive as Rolex, but they're up there.
Whoa, what brand? You gotta give me a brand name.
But here's the thing.
Give me a brand name.
Chased hour.
Okay, I know that is.
Look, well, when I bought my Apple Watch, there were a couple times I put on a different watch, right? And I felt incomplete is the only word I can use. I was so disappointed that, hey, this watch isn't tracking my steps. I can't take my heart rate with it. So the Apple Watch is the only watch I wear. I have those watches sitting there in their cases, and I'm like, I got to tell you, it's the weirdest thing that I don't know what it is. I just wear it all the time. I get up in the morning, I put it on, I don't take it off.
Okay.
So I don't know why. It's just a weird feeling when I go out of the house. I feel like I'm incomplete without it.
You talk about a feature, by the way, that no one really wanted, and now they are. A hand washing timer.
Yeah.
Now
right.
talk about the most interesting thing they came out with, but the idea of it's able to know when your hand motion is washing its hands, probably water contact, I would say, is something to do with it, and they hear the soapy sound coming from, so it's using sound and hand movements to figure out that you're washing your hands, and it's going to have the timer and tell you how long to wash it. How cool was that? My wife even looked at that like, oh my God, that is the coolest thing.
Really?
We don't need it. We don't need it. No. But the idea that the next time I wash my hands and I have WatchOS 7 on here and it's gonna time me of how long you're supposed to be washing your hands, I think that's pretty neat.
Well, to me that ranks right up there with the glass that blinks when you need to take a drink to tell you you're thirsty or not, or you need to hydrate.
I know.
Really?
I know. It's interesting though. I think I can't wait to try it once. I'll definitely turn it off afterwards, but you know what? This is the era we're in. There is no way when they created this watch 7 years ago, they said, you know what? One thing that this watch absolutely must have is a timer on the screen to let you know how long you are washing your hands. The more you know.
Yeah.
So to move on from WatchOS, I mean, they ended with that, and I'm just like, that's amazing. And then the Apple privacy, I was surprised how much time they spent on that, and they tied in with HomeKit. But the one thing I took out of that was that you can now upgrade an account to sign in with Apple, and that was like, I was like, oh, I'm ready for that now.
I concur completely, but some things that I took out of it that I found very important, you can now, when you're selecting an app from the App Store, you can then, they will have a label in the App Store showing you that manufacturer's privacy agreement. Not the whole agreement, but a summary.
Right.
I thought that was very cool.
Now, why do you think they're doing this, Frank? Why is this becoming such a big thing now, compared to like 2 or a year ago? Well,
see, Apple has always been very subtle in their advertising. They would, Apple's privacy has always been the number one product, in my opinion, of Apple. Now, with the hackers into Facebook and Google and other things, privacy has become something that more people are thinking about. And I believe Apple is finally getting on board by telling people, hey, look at what we're doing in terms of privacy. Not only we're doing, but the people that we are doing business with have to adhere to these policies in order for them to sell their apps on our app store. So I think that's a big plus in my opinion.
I do think it's very important when it comes to the privacy of everybody. I honestly feel like you should know that. You should know that.
You should, but a lot of people, they don't get it. They don't get it. Like Google Photos, all right? You load your photos into Google Cloud. It's free. Well, listen, nothing's free.
Yep.
Right? They're gaining something out of you putting your photos in their cloud. So that's where privacy, I think it's the number one product that Apple sells.
Man, are you drumming on the table, Frank? Are you trying to do a song right now?
I'm doing the cruise ship thing.
It's time for dinner.
Yes.
Now, they talked about HomeKit after that, and then HomeKit, they talked about open source. So it's almost like they're opening HomeKit to everybody.
Yeah.
That's what it sounded like to me. They're going to improve the home screen with the most important things at the top, which I think is great. I love like your more important things like your lock of your door, your garage door, like that feature. Adaptive lighting, so it'll change the lighting based on what's going on throughout the day. Cool. Don't need it, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Apps already do that now. It's just that now it's built into HomeKit. The camera, the activity zone focus is cool because how annoying is it that something goes in the frame that means nothing, but now they're allowing these cameras to focus in on certain areas that they know has some more activity.
Yes.
And that's what they're going to kind of track. Now, again, you have to have one of these special cameras that connects directly with iCloud. And right now, there's not that many out there, number one.
Right.
Or two, they are expensive.
Yeah. What about the facial recognition?
Yeah, that I don't get enough people coming to my house, so I could care less about that.
Okay. All right.
You have enough people coming to your home, Frank, that you need to know who they are?
Just the mailman. Brings
Okay,
the bills.
so you put the mailman and give him a lock to unlock your door, okay? He's so trusting, this man over here. So another great feature is the live view in Apple TV. So now you can actually see if someone's approaching your door. They'll have a pop-up that'll picture-in-picture it, and you can see that. So I like that. AirPlay picture-in-picture came out for the tvOS, which I love that. So you can AirPlay something smaller on the screen on the Apple TV.
Yeah, I like that. You could be watching a movie and then have, well, I guess if somebody comes to the door or whatever, you don't have to necessarily interrupt the movie. You'll see that in a corner. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be interesting. Very nice.
And then the last thing is the new show that they announced called Foundation for Apple TV Plus, coming out in 2021. I will say that looks really good.
It did. If you're a science fiction fan, that is going to be...
Do you know anything about that Foundation? Because they talked about... It was a book or...
The author, Isaac... I forget his last name, but he very world known for science fiction and that whole series. So that's going to be something. And of course, the people that were involved is I believe it was the director that did the Dark Knight and another Batman movie.
Yeah, so, is that the director? That's not Christopher Nolan. That's directed. That's not.
Wasn't it?
Christopher Nolan directed those films. Was it the executive producer of it? I forget who.
Maybe.
It's not. It's not Nolan. I can tell you that. There's no way.
But it looked very interesting. The trailer for it. So.
And then so that was all that was tvOS, macOS, iPadOS, and now the big dog. We have macOS, and they announced it as macOS 11.
Yes.
Big Sur. With the biggest redesign in the entire history of Apple, probably since the beginning of OS 10, because this is a completely new design with a new dock, control center built on the Mac. They're going to include all the message features now inside of the Mac. Everything, the screen effects, Memoji, everything's going to be all a part of it now. Yep. Which I thought was interesting how they said Memoji. I'm like, how are they going to do that on one of these Macs? So that told me, I think Face ID's coming.
You think?
Well, you would have to use your phone, because how is it going to work with Face ID on these cameras? It doesn't work. So you could do stickers, probably, but that's it.
Do you think the Face ID is going to be indicative of the operating system?
That's what I don't know. So I think we have to wait for a new Mac to come out to get the idea of that. And then Maps, they added all the new features. I thought Guides was kind of cool. I think that's great for people who are visiting somewhere they haven't been to. I think Guides would be very helpful.
And you can save them. It's not like a one-time thing.
Mm-hmm. And you have Mac Catalyst, which, of course, is the combination of moving an iOS app over to the macOS platform without it compromising
without rewriting
anything.
everything from
Yep.
top to bottom.
And like I said, the big thing with Catalyst is that you get the shortcuts, you get the multiple window support. That's really what everybody wants. But Safari went through a humongous change. Boy, do they want to be Chrome. Because if you haven't used a Chrome browser, right?
No.
Chrome browser loves two big things: extensions and home pages. And Safari now has both of them coming to this platform. Now, the home page right now, you could recustomize it with your own picture. This is exactly what Chrome does. Frank, it's Chrome. Exactly what Chrome does when it comes to that. The privacy report also comes over. Now, extensions do exist on Safari, but what my friend told me is that Google lets you do it for free. Safari, Apple charges people for extensions. I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
So I can see why people don't have that many extensions for Safari, but it sounds like they're really going to be going forward with extensions, and the extensions that live and let you know on the Mac App Store which ones have extensions that will be able to work with the Safari browser.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I thought when you watch these updates year after year, the big thing a couple of years ago was dark mode.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're going back to more color. White with different colorations on the sidebar, things like that. It's just another option that you can select. You can stay in dark mode if you wish, or you can, go into full color mode. Changing the icons around somewhat, rounding the corners, things like that. But overall, I think it's going to be a very, very good, robust system.
Yeah, and then the translate features are also coming, so you could translate a whole website in a different language automatically, keeping the same format.
Yep.
So this was a humongous change. Now, I skipped Catalina for a lot of reasons. I didn't feel like Catalina was going to do anything for me. Also, I was losing a lot of app support that I may still need. This Big Sur has definitely convinced me. I was like, of all the names, I love how Craig Federighi always talks about the name of the OS, because he drives it home that, the team was hard at work,
Yeah.
Big Sur, what do you think of the name?
A rose by any other name would still smell as sweet.
Okay.
So.
Do you still miss your cats?
Yeah. I don't. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
The name of it, but.
Big Sur.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a big change. This is a humongous change. Now, this all ties in to this macOS release with the big dog that Tim Cook announced.
Yep.
Apple Silicon is going to be the replacement of Intel processors on future Macs going forward. And this is the platform that Apple sounds like they're going to stick with forever, going at least for the next decade. So Apple Intel came in around 2007. Or no, when did it come out? Around 2004, 2007. When did they start? 2004, right?
Yeah, 2004,
they started.
Yeah.
So think about it. For 16 years, we stuck with Intel systems. They went from PowerPC to Intel. I was in the middle of that transition because I bought a computer, the white iMac. Then a few months later, the Intel Mac came out. And I'm in the middle. So that means for 2 years, 2 to 3 years, we looked this up. So Apple had a software called Rosetta that is able to basically architect a PowerPC app to work on an Intel Mac, and it worked for about 3 years, and that's when it went away. So when you upgraded from Tiger, that's when the first version of Rosetta came out. It ended 3 years later with Lion. That was a very, very quick transition that I don't know if everybody was ready for it.
Yeah.
Apple this time, I think, is, and I wouldn't know. I wasn't in the business yet, so I was also a lot younger. I didn't understand until after I joined it. Until I became a technician, I didn't understand what Rosetta meant, and until I was training people what that meant, because we were doing one-to-one trainings, and we got to teach all these older people what this is and what the meaning of it is. Do you remember that time going through that?
I do. But this time, the Rosetta is going to be transparent to the user. It's called Rosetta 2,
Right.
and it's just the user's really not going to have any interface the way I understood it with it. It's just going to work in the background. So that should be interesting. And they were saying that it should be in use for about 5 years. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's a lot longer than 3. That was for sure. So
Well, what's the life expectancy before they term them? What's the term?
well, they said
you
2
guys
years.
use
They
in
said
that?
2 years was the transitional period from changing all of their Mac hardware to.
No,
By
but
the
what
way,
I mean is when a piece of hardware they no longer support it.
well, typically it's about 5 years.
5 years, yeah. So,
Yep. And on top of it, Apple. Ah, man, I lost my place. I'm gonna have to edit this out of the podcast, but we can't edit it out on the stream because I lost my notes. So they're developing a transition kit Mac, which is a Mac. Now, apparently they did this last time, that they gave a Mac to people to use that you buy, and you eventually return. It's kind of like you're renting it to develop your transition kit over. And the one surprise that they said is that everything that they talked about today with Mac OS, they were running on a ARM which Apple Silicon based processor.
yeah.
Now we saw the display, it was an XDR display, but we have no idea what Mac was running underneath it.
Yes.
So which tells me that
They
they
were running it on a
used
Mac Mini.
well, they could have been, yeah, you're right. They could have used a Mac Mini on that. We don't, but again, to run like what they were running they were showing Final Cut Pro, Adobe Photoshop, Microsoft. So they were already showing the big guys already on the ARM platform or the Apple Silicon. I gotta change my wording on that.
But
But-
let me ask you this: Do you think that this new chip will be a competitor for a gaming machine?
I guess it depends on who makes the game. If this could take advantage more of the software, if it could work better with the software and take some of the heat off of it, the processor, because of everything that they're introducing with the neural engine, with Metal, yeah,
Right,
I think it could, but it's hard to tell. They got to be optimized for it, and that's because one of the biggest problems I had at the Genius Bar were people that came in and they were, well, why come this game isn't working that great? Well, because it's not a gaming platform. You would think a $3,000 computer would be a gaming platform, but it's not. And face it, Apple doesn't want to rely on Intel's chips. They're out of it. They're not in control. They've been in control since the 85X chip came out, where now they have the control and putting we always said the iPad Pro cannot take advantage of what the processor is in there. We know that based on the benchmark tests that they run. So that's and for what they're saying, this was running on an A12X chip.
Yeah, which is in the Pro.
Right. And they're saying all this stuff could run off it. Well, it all depends on what the Mac was underneath that they were using, which we did not see.
Right.
And then they said that it'll take a end of the year, and this was a shock. They're going to have their first system at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So that tells me in September we're getting an announcement.
Yeah. Now, do you think it's going to be a portable
Yes.
or desktop?
Well, I could think of the iMac possibly having it, because remember, we talked about the new iMac, and we'll get to the part what Apple didn't talk about. But they got to have a flagship product for this to work, but they also got to be careful to not make it like their pro machine. They have to make it a machine that is for a basic user, which I think the Air is the right machine, or they're just going to come out with a completely different style Mac, which I'm thinking the iMac might be.
Well, traditionally you always got more for your money in the desktop.
But isn't the point of this supposed to save money because of the fact that Apple's making their own chip? They're not relying on Intel?
That's what I was just going to ask you. What do you think the price points are going to be? Are they going to be more? They
should be the
less?
same. They should be the same. They should not be more. They should definitely not be more. I would expect it to go down or stay the same. I would say stay the same is fine. You know, but there's going to be a lot of fear. You got to. I mean, imagine being an Apple employee at the end of this year. You have to explain. Now, do a lot of people, Frank? Do you think they really care if what kind of Intel chip is in that computer?
No.
No. So does it matter if I say, "Oh, we have our Apple silicone chip in there"? Do you think it matters? A customer's going to know the difference between an Intel chip and an Apple silicone chip?
Here's what's going to matter. If a architect student comes in and says, "Will this run my CAD system?"
Mm-hmm.
If you say yes, it's not going to matter. If you say, "Oh, well, we don't know," you have to check with the manufacturer, then it's going to matter. Or a lot of the advanced chemistry programs, things like that, unique programs that maybe they don't have a mass market, but they have a small educational market, and they don't want to go through the trouble of converting it. Now, if the Rosetta 2 works like they're saying it's going to work, and you can prove it and say, well, I don't know, but here's what you can do. Buy it, try it. You can return it in 30 days.
Right.
If it doesn't work, bring it back.
That's a hard selling point, though. You got to tell someone to try something. That's the thing. So here's a better wording. I probably would do that, and I'm going to do this in the Apple way. Well, if you check, I would actually ask the software manufacturer what they recommend, what kind of computer you should have. So if they say have an Intel one, you get an Intel one. You know, that's it. If the web developer has not given the Apple silicone chip in their description, I wouldn't do it. That's the best answer I could give. You know, as beautiful as this new machine is it going to work with it? Yes, it's going to work with it. You know, that shouldn't be a question mark because Rosetta is supposed to take care of that.
Right.
However, is it going to last you all 4 years of your college? Well, you know, that's what you don't know.
Yep.
So it's going to be Apple's got to be very careful on how they're doing this. So that's the Apple silicone chip. You can read a lot about what's going on at apple.com. They have everything. We did break down every single thing. The public betas are coming out all in July, which I do plan on putting on my personal phone. However, if you're not familiar on how this works, remember, there are 100,000 bugs inside of these software. Do not put this on your phone unless you know what the hell you're doing.
And besides that, if something happens,
don't go to Apple.
To it, you cannot go to the Apple Store and restore it.
Hate betas.
The rule is the Apple stores cannot even attempt to fix a phone that has beta on it.
Right. So don't go to the Apple Store because they're just going to erase it. They do not have the compatibility. So you are going to have to work with Apple developer for a problem, or you're going to have to erase your phone. So please have a backup made. Now, I'm going to make sure I make an iCloud backup, and I'm going to make a backup on my computer before I go home and do that.
Yep.
And, of course, the releases are planning on coming out in the fall. And that was the entire platform. But let's talk about what they didn't talk about. And this is the good stuff. This is what I like when Apple doesn't talk about certain things. So, first off, iOS 14 will let users set third-party browser and mail apps as the default. And they announced that. So now you can use Chrome or Outlook rather than relying on Safari or Mail. What are your thoughts on that?
My thought is I'm an Apple guy. I like to keep my life simple. I use the Mail app. I use Safari. I have no need to use Chrome or Gmail or whatever. So to me, doesn't matter to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think it may be problematic when people are setting up the iPhone and the customer says, oh, well, I use Gmail, so I want to use the Gmail app instead of the Mail app on the phone. But we'll see what happens.
I have a perfect example. I have something. There's a file that we send to our clients at work, and when you open it in Google Mail, it doesn't do the same thing Apple Mail does. In fact, Google Mail does it wrong. So it tries to open the file, but a file is not readable like that. Where when you open it in the Apple Mail, right away it asks you, where do you want to put this app? And so that's an example of it. Now, another feature of iOS 14 is iOS 14 is compatible with iPhone 6s and 6s Plus and later. So they are still continuing allowing 6s's to have that includes the original iPhone SE, by the way. So this is 5 years old.
Here.
What's that?
You have to define the word run. Will the 6 and 6S run it? Yes. Will it run relatively quickly?
It should.
That remains to be seen.
But I'm always going to say this. It should. Because there's no reason to put it in these devices if it doesn't, work with it. And then same thing with iPadOS. iPadOS is compatible with anything that's an iPad Air 2 and above.
Yep.
So that'll be good. Let's talk about this. Now, we kind of hinted on this already, but macOS is macOS version 11.0. They do not call it that. So, by the way, I'm very curious to know that they had the serial number of if you look back on the screenshot, they have a screenshot of they didn't have the machine that they were using, which is the serial number on there. Of course, we don't know what machine that was. Yeah. But CO7, it says. CO7 is not a normal beginning 3 letters on there. So that's why my thought said they were using something else that has not been released yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the end of macOS 10 going away?
Hey, I like change is good. Change is good. I'm not one of those other people of my generation that are mired down in same old ways. Every year let's learn something new. So far it's been okay for me. So I don't see any. And listen, Will, you didn't change the Catalina. I did. I didn't have any problems. So who's behind the times? Me or you?
Hey, buddy, I still have old versions of Photoshop on here that I have illegally, and I'm not ready to make the move yet. So, screw you.
So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
iOS and iPad OS 14 also did not mention that the company is introducing a new Find My Network accessory program. New accessory program will allow third-party products and accessories to work with the Find My app, letting users track items directly on their Apple devices. So, what does that mean? Well, that definitely means that Tile is going to play a big part of this, I would assume. And it says it's not clear what this means for the Apple Tag product.
Yeah.
But this is a way for Apple to level the playing field to avoid giving AirTags as an unfair advantage, which I agree. So the idea that these third-party devices now can work inside of Find My, that's great. I love that.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
I like that app a lot. Unfortunately, a lot of my friends, they don't like to put their information in there, and because they think, well, you're following me. I'm like, what's the big deal? Right. I don't get it, but.
That's stupid. I think then lose your phone and don't worry about finding it. Don't worry about it. You're fine. Next up is watchOS 7. It's only compatible with Apple Watch Series 3 and later, so Series 2 no longer has any support for it. So that's the end of that. Okay. Well, hopefully people have moved on, at least got a 3 and above at this point.
Well, I think some of the
because you need to know how to hand wash your hands, so you goddamn it, you gotta get a new watch.
Yeah, some of the things I think that people were disappointed in, they didn't feature any new hardware.
No.
They didn't show a new Mac design. They didn't show any new iPhones.
Nope.
No Apple TV.
Nope.
It's interesting if they're going to update Apple TV, the device itself. They have the storage in the device. It would be nice to have the ability to record to your Apple TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like a DVR. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean they have to. They have to have more storage then because these shows would take up like probably 2 to 3 gigabytes a piece, like an hour long one.
Yeah.
So you would have to have the room for it. So that would be, because when you're buying the Apple TV right now, you're not thinking that 3264 gig. It's still not a lot of room, I think, for that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is the HomePod. So the HomePod is getting support for third-party music services. Thank God for that. So it's one of the reasons why people don't get a HomePod is because it doesn't support things like Spotify or SiriusXM.
Yep.
You know, they should be able to allow that in there. I mean, if they want to grow their platform, this is how, honestly, or make it more compatible with every other device. You can't keep it so tight-knit on just Apple, you know? It doesn't work like that. I know it works for us because we're Apple fanboys and we used to work there and we used to get discounts, but not everyone's like that.
I mean, listen, I subscribe to Apple Music. I never thought I would subscribe to any music service, whether it was Spotify, Pandora, whatever. Why do I rent music? But then when I sat down and looked at on pencil and paper where I was allocating about $30 a month to buy new CDs or albums and new music, and Apple says, well, you know, for $14 a month, you can listen to, your family can listen to all new music anytime, anywhere, create playlists, all that. I was like, well, hell, that's a no-brainer. So that's, and so I keep it easy. I go to Apple Music. I don't have any problems, and I love it. So.
Also, compatible Macs with Big Sur. So right now it is anything that's a 2013 and later MacBook Pro, 2014 and later Mac Mini, 2017 later iMac Pro, 2014 later iMac, late 2013 and later MacBook Pro, 2013 and later MacBook Air, and 2015 and later MacBook. So all the MacBooks are still compatible. Thank God for that. And then, according to the desktops, it says, actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to take that out of the podcast, but on the video version, we can't do that. So the ones that were capable of running Catalina that cannot run Big Sur is any 2012 or 2013 early MacBook Pro, 2012 MacBook Air. So that's the one that before the transition ended.
Right.
That's very interesting, because the MacBook Air just stopped not even 2 years ago. 2012 and 2013 iMac. So that means if you have a 2014 Mac, it's still compatible 6 years later. And then 2012 Mac Mini is no longer supported. So
well, my iMac is a late 2014. So I should be in good shape.
You're in good shape. Yep. So I'm in good shape. My wife still has I bought her the the Mac Mini, the white one. She still has it. It's right next to me on my desk.
Wow.
Still works, by the way. It can only go up to like Mac OS 9, Mac OS 10.9. So, do you remember which OS that is?
No, I don't.
Come on, think about it. Mac OS. Come on, you got it.
9.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't remember the names of them.
Come on, Maverick, sir.
Oh,
Come
Maverick.
on.
Oh, okay.
It's the first one we went differently from the Tiger, from the pets. Yep. That's why that was so significant. So that is all the big announcements going on. You know, you could I've been checking Mac rumors all day just to see if anything new came out. You know, it looks like they're also going to have iOS 14 warns drivers of speed and red light cameras. Interesting. So they're going to have that feature added to iOS 14 and Maps. But I just saw that now. But nothing else new, looks like, has come out since this announcement. Obviously, we're recording this on a Monday, so a lot of stuff could come out that we don't know about, of little tidbits or features that are coming out. But overall, what would you say how everything worked out today? Did you really enjoy it?
I thought the presentation went very smooth. I thought that it was very well done. I don't know if it was all done live.
No, none of it was done live.
But I thought it went very, very well. They had a lot of different people talk. So you got to see a little bit more of the campus, which I'm dying to get out there and see. But I thought it went real well, very well done. Again, not as much of Tim Cook, but hey, what are you
There
gonna
wasn't
do?
going to be, honestly. He's like I said, he's never on there. So that's just what happens. He's never on there. So this was a great episode, Frank. I had a good time looking at everything today. This was it was good to watch another WWDC, just focusing all day on that. Really had a good time doing this podcast stream. Remember, you can check us out here. We are doing this every single Friday. We have a brand new episode, an audio version of this podcast, and we're going to be publishing the video version here on YouTube. We had a great time here today, Frank, and next week we are going to have our special 50th episode where we're going to try to have as many Apple employees in one spot at one time just to talk about our Apple Store experiences, and that's what we're going to leave off for next week. Frank,
How many responses have you got?
Zero. Thank you very much, everybody, for this wonderful podcast. Thank you for joining us here, and we hope you subscribe to us. It was a lot of fun. Subscribe here not only on YouTube, but also add us, like us, give us that thumbs up, and give us a review on our iTunes. And check us out on our Facebook. We will be publishing articles on Facebook and Twitter as we see them come out, and we will publish them so that way you know what's going to be happening. And goddamn, back up your stuff before you install a goddamn beta, or else you're going to piss me off. And Frank will be pissed too.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week. And remember to think different with your favorite Apple Store people.